When you're fed up with fighting food and your body, join us here. I'm Ali Shapiro, creator of the Truths with Food program and your host for Insatiable, where we explore the hidden aspects of fighting our food, our weight, and our bodies, and dive deep into nutrition science and true whole health. Fair warning, this is not your parents' health care. This is a big rebel yell to those who crave meaning, hunger for truth, and whose lust for life is truly insatiable. Believe me, freedom awaits. Welcome to season 5 of the Insatiable podcast. This season, our theme is eating triggers, namely what triggers the on and off eating cycle. We're focusing on clarity about these eating triggers is a process and a tool. Why is this? When you get clear, you get to the root cause. If you've ever had a health issue that doesn't just seem to go away, it's because you probably haven't gotten to the root cause. So you know how frustrating that is to try different things and nothing work. The second reason we care about clarity is logic doesn't change us. We need to emotionally open up and understand what's really happening for us so that we can move to change. And lastly, clarity equals distance. If you've ever can look back on your life and have quote unquote gotten over something, you realize that you actually worked through it. And the distance gives you a chance to be more objective about the situation, to own your part in it, see where the other person was coming from, look at the context of the situation. And so this is why clarity is so important. So why is our wardrobe categorized as thinner, normal, and bigger, or all black and non-self-expressive? In today's episode, eating triggers, clothing, lack of confidence, and food, Juliet and I get into the nitty-gritty of clothing, eating triggers, and how it actually makes sense that when we aren't confident in our clothing and turn to food. For our new listeners, Juliet is our co-host OG of Insatiable. She kicked off the launch of Insatiable with us. She's been active in the fitness community for a decade plus. She is a partner and nutrition director for Unite Fitness Studio Franchises, a rapidly growing group and personal training studio, helping to craft Unite's trademark heart, muscle, mind workout methodology. Juliet's also a regular contributor on Fox and ABC News. And when she's not in the studio, Juliet loves to connect with nature, her 2 cats included, and frequently takes trips to Woodstock, New York area to hike and relax. Juliet, clothing.
Dun, dun, dun.
What are your earliest memories of getting dressed?
Okay.
Or of clothing in your body, I should say.
So many come to mind, Ali. This is a huge trigger for me, or was rather, not so much anymore. But earliest memory, one of them, I think it was my 7th birthday, and my mom rented out, we lived in New York City, and underneath our apartment complex there was like a beauty salon. And so my mom rented out the beauty salons for me and 10 of my 7-year-old girlfriends. And I remember needing to get a party dress for this party. And this was a thing in elementary school where for your birthday, at least it was a thing for me growing up, where you would get a party dress and feel pretty on your birthday. And I remember getting a very special dress and thinking like that all of them are going to like it. And then I don't remember all the details, but I do remember not feeling pretty, not feeling confident, crying in the bathroom with my mom, telling her I didn't want to go back out to the party, that nobody liked me, the other girls were getting more attention. So that's one of my earliest memories when it comes to clothing.
Interesting. And I think, as we're talking about our social media episode and the next couple of episodes, we're talking about how clothing in this case is inherently neutral, right? But it's what it triggers inside of us. And so what do you think it was triggering? What real feeling, even though you had all these reasons for not wanting to go back out, what do you think that party dress was triggering in you?
What was the feeling of not fitting in? Feeling like an outsider, not getting the kind of attention that I thought was appropriate on that day, and creating meaning around that to say that I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Feeling really inadequate.
Inadequacy. And that was a lot for me growing up, was that feeling inadequate. So that was 7 years old, right? And then I have another distinct memory, which is high school, where I used to get dressed in the dark. And that was because I didn't want to look at my body. So every day before school, I would get dressed like in the pitch black dark, and I wouldn't look at myself. And then I would just go to school. That was not wanting to face myself. And then the third memory, there's like 3 distinct memories here when it comes to clothing. I was thinking about this, is more college. And this is when I was really going through a lot of body shaming issues and a lot of food issues, was feeling like nothing fit me right and not wanting to go out because it didn't look right. Or I remember would change my outfit 10 times. And, oh, this makes me feel fat. Oh, I just hate this. Oh, this is too tight. This is too this. This is too that. I just don't feel good about myself. I don't even want to go out. I have no confidence. And so that's the third memory when it comes to clothing and how much power it had over me in different phases of my life.
Yeah, that's that uncertainty. Do I even want to go out? Why isn't this fitting? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was funny as we were preparing for this episode. I was like, the first thing that came up is like, ugh, I'm bad at clothing. I was like, what are we going to talk about?
Oh,
and then,
style, right? Like for you, I feel like you have that hang up about yourself that you like don't have style.
Well, and it's also admitting that I don't really care. And not that I'm a sloth, people here, but it was interesting as I actually thought about it. One of my distinct memories about clothing came up in relation to my sister. My sister was always very thin and very beautiful. She had that long blonde hair. She was so cute. And I really struggled with my weight. And I remember we would go back to school and it was like this big deal. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, but we would get a certain amount of money for back to school clothing. And we would go to this department store called Horns. It like doesn't even exist. I don't think it was a national thing, but it existed in Pittsburgh. And I remember like my sister could fit into like all the really cute clothing. And I was always like never feeling satisfied in what I wore. And I thought about too, my sister and all my cousins, we were really all close growing up. They always did dance. They took dance up as a sport. And I did like softball and like the more, I guess, like athletics. Well, no, dance is very athletic. But I used to tell myself like, I don't want to dance. And I think I just didn't want to they would wear these tight uniforms. And I think it really prevented me from ever engaging in dance. Because I did do gymnastics when I was like tinier and like 5 or 6 years old. But I was like, I would never want to wear those outfits. And it like really, it's kind of sad. Like it's probably why I never took dance classes growing up. But I thought about that. And then I thought about, I was really, really thin for a time in college. It was my senior year. And when we look at the tail triggers, which we'll get into in a second, and then we got into a lot in the social media episode, but you know, am I feeling tired? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling inadequate? Am I feeling lonely? These are the triggers. Clothing themselves does not make us feel this way, but it's what feeling it brings up in us. I felt super confident. There was no uncertainty in my life that senior year of college. Like my grades were in, I had a job offer. Oh no, wait, I didn't have a job offer yet, but I knew that my grades were good enough that I would get one. And I had just come off of a study abroad and I was losing weight, which was all my confidence. And I did the Shire's Honors Program at Penn State, and you had to do a senior thesis. And my whole thesis was on fashion. There was a psychology piece to it, but I felt so confident. I got really into fashion in the sense that like I took more chances and I was more self-expressive. And I wrote this whole thesis on this psychological theory called optimal distinctiveness, that as human beings, we have a desire to be part of a group and belong, to your story when you were little, but we also want to be unique and an individual. And I realized that like I was feeling so thin and confident in my body that I was like, I like fashion enough to write a freaking thesis on this. I mean, I talked about how it played out in brands and it was obviously, but it was really fascinating to me. And then I thought about like, as I struggled with weight, part of why I say I'm bad with clothing is because I basically wore all black for like several years. And I used to have that thing with the closet, like so much uncertainty, like what's going to fit, what's not, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it was just interesting thinking about, wow, I actually do have a history with clothing, even though it's not my jam.
Yeah, actually the first career I ever wanted to have was to be a fashion designer when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like in elementary school, and they're like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I would always draw clothing and design, and I would always play dress up with my friends. I mean, hence the whole party dress thing. Like, it was a very big part of my identity, was how I expressed myself was through what I wore. And I would often wear really different things than other kids, even because I love going to thrift stores and getting clothing that was from different eras. I remember I wore these like shoes that were from the 1960s, this whole like lightning bolt bell bottom outfit in the second grade. I should show you some pictures, Ali. It's pretty crazy. But I picked out all my own outfits from a really young age and like knew how I wanted to dress, like what looked, just what was fun. It was a way of self-expression.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's interesting. Even though I don't necessarily care for myself, I love and admire people who can put together such beautiful outfits. Like, I really do feel like at its best, it's a form of self-expression. It can be political, it can be just artistic. And I really admire people who are super stylish. Like, I'm like, damn, good for you,
I think clothing and being stylish can get a bad rep in that, people who are into that, they're like conceited, or, they are of a certain class. But I don't necessarily think that's always the case when it comes to just wanting to wear things that make you feel good, or it's like a piece of art on your body that, that you're showing. And I think that there's different reasons for wanting to dress a certain way,
Yes, yes. And I think when we're worried about looking a certain way versus expressing ourselves and feeling good in it, that's when we get triggered. And oddly enough, I can remember enough times going to try on something and the size was bigger than I thought I was. And then being like, fuck this, and eating at the food court at the mall.
I know. And with sizing now, it's so not indicative of like what size you are, because there's so many different brands and different sizing structures to clothing that I have so many ranges right now of waist sizes, and like when it comes to even like jeans in my closet, it's really interesting just depending on the brand. But it is hard not to think like, wait, I look exactly the same, but why is this, why am I a size, this X in this store and a size X in that store?
Yeah. I mean, this story is kind of embarrassing, but not really. So I was going to Martha's Vineyard a couple of weeks ago. A friend invited Carlos and I up, and I have like not shopped in years. Like, my mom will see something at like TJ Maxx or Marshall's and be like, do you like this? And it'll be like pants or t-shirt. And I'll be like, thanks, Mom. Cause I just don't like to shop. I don't like malls. I don't like the fluorescent lighting, all that kind of stuff. But so I was like, I need shorts, especially because I've been into this guy, Dr. Jack Kruse. I recommend everyone check him out. He's really into the mitochondria and how light affects us. And so I'm like, he's all about like more skin exposure to the sun. So I'm like, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get shorts. So I get sun exposure. I told myself short people like me should not wear shorts. But I went into Banana Republic and the Gap and Target. They're all really close. And I go into Target and I'm like, what is the women's section versus the junior section? And I like had to go up to the employee at Target and I'm like, where do the adults shop? And she was like, actually the sizes are very similar, so people can swap in and out of them. And I was like, okay. But I was, again, because I feel like I don't know fashion, I was like, I don't want to be in the wrong section, like trying on something and then like it says it's an 8, but it's an 8 junior and it fits around my like calf,
Uh-huh.
But I thought it was interesting how sizing has changed. She's like, people pretty much interswap. And I'm like, okay, all right, if that's what works. And it totally worked. I got like a pair of shorts that were technically in the junior section, but then I bought a dress in the quote unquote adult section. I was like, but that kind of stuff would trip me up in the past. And now I was just like, whatever. Like it just, I feel like I was like, this is freedom, right?
Well, it's just like the scale. You put so much power on the number, right? How much you weigh. It's like, are you putting that much power on the number of what your, pant size is or what your dress size is?
Yeah, totally. But I think that, again, if we think about our triggers, so the triggers, and again, this is a tool that I give in Why Am I Eating This Now to start to give us clarity of why is clothing triggering me? Am I tired? Am I tired of the struggle of like trying to find something to wear that I can't fit into what I want, or I think I can't fit into what I want, versus which often what we want is what will look good for other people, right? Not ourselves. is this making me feel anxious or uncertain? Like, why can't I find what I want? Why do they not make clothes for me? Or like, to your point, why am I not getting the attention, your experience, right? Of when I'm wearing this as a 7-year-old, does this make me feel inadequate? I think clothing triggers inadequacy a lot. Like, I'm the only person who can't find clothes that fit. Or that would be more lonely, which is loneliness. But I can't fit into what I want, or they don't make clothes so that my body looks good. And so figuring out what that specific trigger is, and that trigger triggers a stress response. And as I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking about what often used to make me eat was I would either buy something that was too small because I didn't want to wear the bigger size. And then as it was like squeezing my stomach, I would feel behind. Like, it would trigger that competitor pattern in me. I'm like, I'm behind. I should be further along in my weight loss. But it was because I bought the too tight clothing to begin with. But I didn't know this at the time, right? Or if you wear something too loose and that you don't really care about, you almost feel like a sack of potatoes and invisible. And then you're like, no one's commenting, or I feel invisible and I'm not self-expressed, whether you like clothes or not. And then you eat because of that as well. Does that resonate, or am I the only person who thinks like that?
No, not at all. But I was just thinking, for me, everything has spandex in it these days. And so you can kind of get into like 5 different sizes if you wanted to. And so I was playing this game with myself to see like, what is the smallest size jean I can possibly fit into? And then that's the one that I would purchase. And it was like just reassuring, like I'm fit, like I can fit into the smallest size possible, even though it's totally like, it's not real. It's all stretch. Doesn't even make, they all stretch to whatever you want them to be.
That's
we play games with ourselves about, when we do that, it's like wanting to feel like we fit this certain mold,
Yeah, and fit in. I had asked my clients, and we have this private Truths with Food alumni Facebook group, and one of my clients said I could share this, and I'm just identifying her as my client, but she said, I love fashion and I love observing what people are wearing. But she's like, and she said this actually, my question had created a realization that she's like, oh my God, I realized that clothing actually creates an instant compare trigger. Like, that woman has a cute outfit at work. I wish I could wear that, but that wouldn't look good on my body, she said. Or is what I'm currently wearing cute? Or do I look fat? Do people take me as seriously? But because, will people take me as seriously even though I'm not as thin or cute? And, as she was saying that, I was like, that's totally that sense of belonging, right? It's all this like kind of thoughts that are going back and forth and making us feel crazy, but we feel like our belonging is at risk, and that there is a scarcity of belonging, a scarcity of cuteness, right? But we all feel that way, like in our bodies.
How did you feel when you were getting your wedding dress? Because that's such a monumental outfit.
Ooh, that's such a good question. So I never had a vision. This is so funny. I feel like I'm very big picture, but I've never had a vision for my life. So I never knew if I would get married. So I never had planned, like, this is what it has to be like. So I went, and I was not going to spend a lot of money. I realized also a big issue with me with clothing is I don't like spending the money on it. So I avoid it altogether. It's my pattern. It's like uncertain. Should I be spending the money? And a big piece of that is because for the first 8 years of building my business, I didn't have money to spend on anything other than my education and like the electricity and mortgage. You know what I mean? And so kind of moving back to the wedding dress. So I asked a friend, like, because I didn't live in Pittsburgh at the time, but we were getting married here. So I asked a friend, where do you recommend that I go? And I, at the time, what was that show on TLC? Is TLC still even a channel? Oh, Say Yes to the Dress. Do you remember that show?
Yes, I became obsessed with it when I was getting married and getting a dress. I started watching every single episode.
Yeah, I really liked the show.
I loved it. I used to cry like every time.
I know.
I'm so happy because women feel genuinely beautiful. And there's something about the wedding dress that's different than any other outfit that they've ever put on, that they see themselves as this beautiful, it transports you into seeing your almost like your soul being and not just your outward appearance. And it's really strange how that, like the wedding dress does that, but you can't get that same reaction from just going and buying a business suit.
Well, I think that's part of the narrative of like, you're being rescued. Like you're this pure, innocent, never virgin that is ready to be taken by her man, even though I don't think most of us are. I don't know.
But no, it is. It's put in your head that you're supposed to feel like with the whole crying thing. Like, oh, you'll know you have found the right outfit when you cry.
Well, and I'm so glad you said that because that was like, so I found my dress, which I still love to this day. It was a very classic, not a lot of frills. It was very elegant, I thought. I mean, it's on my Instagram, so if anyone's curious, they can look. But I didn't cry. And I called my friend who had been married before me and I was like, she's like, did you find the dress? Because she had recommended the store. And I was like, I did, but I didn't cry. I was like, did you? And she's like, fuck no. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it wasn't maybe the one because I looked at it from, I really like this. It really is my style. It's under $1,000 and I could get it. And if I bought the floor model, I could get 10%. I mean, because they're going to tailor it anyways, but it wasn't like this big, like, oh, and it was just like, yeah, this feels really good. I think I'd be comfortable in it. And I really liked it. And I still like it to this day. And so that was my process. But what was interesting is, so I was living in Philly at the time, right? So I bought the dress and they were like, you have to come back at this time for a fitting. And I was doing Live Method at the time. Do you remember Live Method? I think it's moved online. But I didn't. And I was very intentional because this was 7 years ago. So I had definitely felt like I had a truce with food, but I was still like, I could still be sucked in maybe, you know? And I was like, I am not getting psycho about my health for my wedding dress. And in fact, I was diagnosed with hypothyroid. This was a time when they thought I might have had thyroid cancer. And Dr. Raquel was like, you need to take graduate school off. And so I really slowed down, but I worked out consistently 5 days a week. I don't know if it was Live Method or it's just me being consistent for 5 days a week. Didn't change my diet or anything else. And by the time I went back to the fitting, they said, if you lose any more weight, you're not going to be able to use, or like, and I don't even know if I lost weight because I didn't weigh myself. They're like, you're going to have to get a smaller size dress because we have to take this in so much more. And I was like, huh. And so I did feel really good. I was really toned. I mean, I don't even remember what size dress, but I felt great on my wedding day. But it was just more, I don't know, because of, I think, the process leading up to my wedding. Like I really slowed down. I connected with friends. I really took care of myself on like I remember getting facials, you know, or something like that, like one facial or something like that, but just really slowed down. And I think that's why I felt so great in the dress. It wasn't, yes, my body was physically toned and I liked the dress, but it was just the right fit for me. Like I wouldn't have been able to enjoy a $10,000 wedding dress. And if people can enjoy that, that's great. That just wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, there's no judgment there if you spent that.
You would have been able to enjoy it if you were just in a different circumstance. You know what I mean? It all depends on your level of like where you are in your life and how much money you have and what you want to spend your money on. And it's hard to say, like, if you were a millionaire, it's hard to say if you would have not even tried on those more expensive dresses, you know?
Right. Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because I was thinking about my friend. Her husband was like a teacher at this really prestigious private school. And one of the parents bought her a Birkin bag. And I had they are $25,000. In fact, she was my photographer for my new website. And she brought the bag if we wanted a prop for it to use it because it was the colors of my new brand. It was this like blue. And I was like, I can't have that in my branding. It's not who I am. I mean, I definitely would think that, you know. Well, I was like, if the colors match, I was like, would anyone even know that this bag was $25,000? Because I was like, I'm not even of a class that I'm aware of these brands.
I only know about the Birkin from Sex and the City.
Oh, was it on the?
There's a whole episode about the Birkin bag. Oh, yeah. That's the only reason I know about it, but that's, there's a whole Sex and the City episode.
But I was like, oh my God, there's brands that I'm not even aware of because it's just like, it's almost the obscurity of it means that you're in the know. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't want to be known by everybody. So yeah, you're right. How about you with your wedding dress?
Well, that was the thing I was most excited about with the wedding, aside from marrying my husband, was the dress. Because again, going back to me as a little girl, I love fashion and I love a reason to put a piece of art on my body. And this is like the only time in your life that you can wear that's appropriate to wear this specific kind of art, is how I was looking at it. So it was super, super exciting for me. And I went to a bunch of different places. I must have tried on, 20 different dresses. And, I had a certain budget. So and I knew definitely certain cuts that I feel more comfortable in, or materials, because I get really hot. I'm always sweating. So it's important. Like I had to make sure of things like that. I actually did have the experience of crying when I found the right dress, but I don't necessarily know if I don't think it's the dress that necessarily that is why I got emotional, but it was the circumstances of my mom ended up coming to the appointment with me unexpectedly. And, we have had a very rocky relationship. And I think this is just really this idea of my mom, whom I never thought would probably be the person who's getting the dress with me, is here. And I think it was more me crying because I felt emotional and not necessarily because, this is definitely the dress. I mean, the dress was so beautiful. So it was like the combination of feeling really beautiful. And I remember saying, I've never felt so beautiful. Like this dress just fit my body in a way that highlighted my figure. But then having her there was sort of like how I probably had fantasized about, having my mom get my wedding dress with me. And that's not the relationship we have at all. Mm-hmm. So her being there was so random. And so it made me, I think, just feel a lot of emotion.
Yeah. No, I can see that, right? It's something also that we're told, like mothers and daughters bond over, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it feels really good. One of the things that you were saying is, and this was funny because this came up in Truths with Food last round, is people were saying like, well, what do you do? Like clothes just don't fit me. And I was like, yeah, they don't really fit anybody. That's the problem. And I gave this client like all these ideas, like maybe you can find designers that work with people with your body. And then one of my clients chimed in and who was brilliant and was like, find a tailor. And I was like,
no, it's amazing to see that, because when you get a wedding dress, they clip it, right? Because they're all sample sizes. It's very rare that you're trying on a dress that is your size. So they clip it and around your figure and completely make it like fit to your body. And I think that's part of why women just feel so good in their wedding dress. Most of the time it's the only piece of clothing you'll ever have that is perfectly tailored to your body.
Yeah. And as you were saying, I'm like, oh my God, this is why we need a tailor in real life. So, and what I also thought was interesting, you were talking about like, you love the textures. And when I was going to shop for Martha's Vineyard the night before our flight, because I avoid shopping, I was trying on these shorts and everything. And I don't normally wear shorts. And I was like, my immediate reaction was to look in the mirror, which I think all of ours are. And I was like, I wonder if these look good. And because I knew we were preparing for this episode, I was like, isn't that interesting? I asked the lady what the return policy was because I wanted to go home and ask Carlos to double check that they look good. And I was like, the first response that I said wasn't like, oh, do I like the fabric with how these feel? Do I like how I feel in this?
Does Carlos even know how, like, I think it's hard to ask other people, like, does this look good on me? Because especially for somebody, at least for like my husband, he's like, I don't know what you're looking for me to tell you, because he thinks that it looks good. You know what I mean? It's hard for him to like, it's all the same to him in a sense.
Right. Well, that's what is it? Someone was telling me about a study that women dress for other women. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if you asked me, it would be a really different response than like asking one of our husbands.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if then I'm like, as you're saying that, I'm like, is it to confirm the male gaze? Like, do I care about the male gaze more than what my friends think? Or I don't know. I think for me, it was more just like a second opinion because I don't feel confident in my fashion abilities. And so, but it was just interesting. I was like, we immediately go to the mirror rather than even starting with like these. I wouldn't even tell you I couldn't even name a fabric I liked or whatever, or like, and then thinking like, should I get this tailored? Right. I mean, granted, these were shorts, jean shorts, which are now back in style. That's another thing. I was like, oh my God, didn't we get rid of these in like 20 years?
Jean shorts were out?
Well, I thought oh my God, I feel, it's clear how bad of a fashion, and I actually dress okay, guys. Like I'm not a mess, but I just don't know.
I don't even like jeans. I just find them really uncomfortable. I always have crotch sweat. I just like, that's where I'm just like, I call it swamp ass. Like I always have swamp ass, even in the winter. Like I walk and I'm just very pitta. I'm always really like hot. And so I have to find things that I know that are going to be supportive for my sweat. That's like a big part of shopping for me is like, colors, can't wear too light of a color, armpit sweat. Somebody was like, oh, just get Botox in your armpits. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to clog up my glands.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but yeah, no. So I think it's important. You have to, what's going to feel comfortable, what's not going to make you feel embarrassed because you're dripping sweat down your legs.
Yeah, no, and I think really important so that we don't exaggerate clothing if it's already going to be fraught. Like let's start with, again, and we talked about this in the social media episode, but grounding back to what's important to you. Like you want your clothing to be functional, so do I. I want my wardrobe to kind of be able to be mix and match. It's when I went out, probably the last time I did major shopping was like in college, right? So a lot of my stuff, I mean, I've gotten rid of some of it through the years, but like last year I went through and I was like, okay, these are the colors that I really like, and like, let's stick to that so that I can always mix and match. So, and not having a lot of pieces is important to me as well. But what fabrics feel good and being okay with getting a tailor. I will tell you, I remember growing up, my friend in high school, her family had a lot of money and she would always she was under 5 feet. So she would always get everything tailored because everything was so long on her. And I incorrectly correlated that getting a tailor is super expensive, but you can go to like the dry cleaner and get things tailored and it makes it so worth it because you feel like it is in alignment with exactly what you need. Because I don't think anything fits anyone off the rack like that well. Like, and this brings up what I was also thinking about is like clothes that were made in like the 70s and the 80s. Like I know vintage clothing is like really popular, but it held you in so much better, didn't it? Than like this stuff that they make today that's designed to be, what is it called? Fast fashion?
Well, I think that things are more cheaply made now. They're not as good quality, so they're not as structured.
That's the word. They're not as structured.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's really important for us to realize that what fabrics work really well with our bodies, let's get a tailor rather than thinking, again, rather than feeling like we have to fit the mold, we can make the mold that we want. I think that's an important metaphor in general in life. And I think that can go a long way towards us feeling comfortable in our clothing because weirdly, when you feel uncomfortable in your clothing, you tend to overeat, right? Just because of the discomfort, or you don't eat in public and then you come home and eat afterwards because you're like, you make it mean something about your thighs rubbing together or your swamp ass, as you would say, or that your unbotoxed armpits are a sweat machine.
You think I'll get sponsored by like a deodorant brand after this?
Yeah. I also want to say too that we were talking about you saying as a piece of art. One of the things I was chatting with the client and she was feeling bad about caring about her clothing, but she has a really big job. She's in a leadership position and clothing really does say something when you're in the corporate world, especially she's in the corporate world. And I think that's that nuanced middle that we have to get at. And it's why it's important to understand what makes us feel good is because whether it's right or wrong, clothing does influence how people see us. Now, it doesn't influence us to the degree I think that we make it mean when we're triggered, if we're feeling tired, uncertain, inadequate, or lonely, but it definitely does matter. And what I was telling her is she's someone who's very organized and she's someone who very values order and beauty. And that's okay to value that. I think John Donahue talked about the difference between glamour and beauty. And beauty is a much more, I think, natural value. And glamour is kind of beauty on steroids, right? It's kind of the like, your hair doesn't move and you're spray tanned and you're up, you're going to the Met Ball, right? And that can be fun on occasion as well. Like I love seeing what Rihanna's going to wear or Beyonce, I mean, that is glamour and that's so fun, but that's costume, right? That's like, I don't know, like you said, a piece of art that you're wearing versus it's okay to care about beauty and order. I mean, I care about order. I think nature is so elegant. I love, beautiful things that are embodied beauty, not just clothing.
And I know that when I'm more put together, even if I take just a little bit extra time to, the days that I want to put on a little bit of blush or, put a little color on my lip, I perform better.
Yeah.
I teach a better class. And it's just that I feel more with it. I feel more together and ready for the day versus if I just roll out of bed and like, I just don't feel like I look good. And it's not really judging myself and saying, oh, you're ugly. It's just more like I didn't take the time to really care about myself today.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about like, ever since we've kind of been documenting humans' history, there's been like war paint. There's been like, there's always been clothing artifacts.
Like a ritual to kind of like prepare for something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like put your best face forward, I guess, or like, you know what I mean? Or whatever. And I think that metaphor, that symbolism is important. And I've seen research about how people do perform better, like when they wear the corporate clothing or like the suit and tie or the dress. And I agree. I mean, I found a really great makeup line. This makeup line is so cool. It's called RMS Beauty. And I actually think Meghan Markle uses it, I found out, because I follow RMS Beauty online. But what the makeup does, it's very simple. It actually nourishes your skin at the same time. So I use a bronzer and then this like highlighter, this like white highlighter, but it has like, the bronzer has, I think, jojoba oil in it or something else, some vitamin. And I was like, oh my God, I can get behind this because it's actually moisturizing and adding to my skin. And it takes 2 seconds to put on. Like it's really not that much. And it's very simple. Again, it's kind of like my wedding dress. I feel like the makeup serves multi-purpose. And I have this great red lip that it's so funny. So many people have asked me that. And Carlos got that for me for my birthday. It's an organic lipstick. He's so much better at fashion. He used to work at the Gap and all this stuff. So he's like so much more stylish than me. but just putting that together. And I found that I really like jewelry. I think because of my history of clothing and struggling with my weight, I always felt like jewelry was the one thing that I could really get excited about and that would look good, because who says my earlobes look bad? You know what I mean? No one says that. But yeah, so I really like jewelry, and I've realized that I really like to wear like kind of look put together on a very basic level, but then wear jewelry and do like a simple makeup. So
sometimes for me, it's hard to go out and socialize because the effort that it takes to look the way that I would want to look, which isn't even that much. I don't do that much. My put together might be somebody's like really unput together, but just thinking about like putting on a little bit of makeup or not wearing my workout clothes or, not putting a hat on, having my hair look somewhat presentable really stresses me out. And where I don't socialize because of that. I'm just like, it's too much effort. I'm just going to stay home.
Interesting. So that's at that belonging level that we talk about, like wanting to, because what if you showed up without all the effort?
I do that sometimes, but then it just feels not as special to me. And I want to try and create this difference between my day to day, because I'll go out and have a drink with a friend post workout, on a weeknight, sometimes after work. And that's my, I'm in my workout clothes and I don't feel like bad about it at all, but it's more like this Friday night or Saturday night, trying to get out of my routine and doing something a little more special and just like pushing myself a little bit out of my comfort zone. Sometimes I'm just like, and maybe I'm depleted. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I just don't have the energy, the resources to do it. And if I had more energy, I would feel up for it.
Well, and I also wonder if you're building it up, right? As an avoider, if that's a prominent pattern for you, avoiders.
Oh yeah, I am the avoider.
Yeah, they like build it up.
Based on like, Ali's quiz, I'm the avoider.
Yeah. Oh my God, that reminds me. We are going to pause right now for a word from our sponsor, and then we're going to come back and I want to talk about green fashion and bathing suits. So sit tight right here. This Insatiable episode is sponsored by my client described life-changing program, Why Am I Eating This Now? If you are tired of the on-off cycle, want food to stop being worth it in the moment, but not afterwards, and you want to stop self-sabotaging with food, this live program is for you. Early bird registration begins on September 10th. So visit alishapiro.com/food freedom 2018 to sign up to be notified when registration opens for this year's live session. Want to know a little bit more? Stay tuned to the end of this episode. Okay, Juliet, we're back. Before we get to green fashion and bathing suits, let's pick back up on that avoider from the quiz. Yeah, avoiders build things up, right? It's got to be like this dramatic piece of art or not. When I bet there could be simpler things that you could do that just a little bit might even give you momentum to do.
Well, I think if I was a little bit more organized and like you were saying, if you have less pieces and you know ahead of time, or this is what goes with this. And, you know, I always envied that show, What Not to Wear, you know, when they would like,
oh yes,
they would like throw everyone's shit in a garbage bag. They're like, no, you're not allowed to have any of this anymore. This isn't suiting you. And then they would, you know, curate outfits for you that you could, you know, mix and match the pieces. And it's like, all right, you only have 10 items now, but you know what looks good with everything. Is like, I'm not really a fashionista anymore like I used to be. So sometimes it's just like, I don't even know what looks good together.
Yeah.
I definitely know how to do athleisure if anybody needs any help with that. But that's pretty much a no-brainer.
I love you. I know how to do athleisure. I know. I'm in this, you know, I work in a co-working space, and I've realized that for me to be consistent with exercise, like working out at lunch is really my prime time. So I come in here half the time in like athleisure, and some people are having these like power meetings, and I'm like, all right, once I shower in the afternoon, I come back. That's like my power hour. So let's talk a little bit about bathing suits. How does that, I mean, I feel like that is so triggering for people. It's like you want to go eat.
I'm like making a face right now. Just saying, like, ugh.
I saw your Instagram though. Like you showed your butt from your bathing suit. I'm like, go Juliet.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot more body confidence than I've ever had before. So I don't really feel, I feel way more confident than I've ever felt in a bathing suit at this point in my life. And I used to be really, really like freaked out when it came to doing anything where like I wouldn't go to a pool party.
I would go, but then say, oh, I forgot my suit.
I just wouldn't go. Especially like for work. You know, my business partner, he always wanted to have like a pool party. And part of it's like, oh, we're all so hot and fit. Like we got to show off and have a pool party with each other. And I was like, that sounds like a nightmare. So I just wouldn't go.
I'm getting the moral. My main takeaway from these episodes on triggering is I am so glad I'm not in the fitness industry. The pressure sounds ridiculous.
It's the pressure that you put on yourself, right? It's not, and that we all feed into it who are in the industry. I think that if we talked openly about it more and we were more supportive of one another, I think that we could take some of that pressure off.
Yes. And I think help more people too, because I think people get intimidated.
For sure. Yeah. But then, like I said, then it's the consumer that has certain expectations as well. So the consumer has to also kind of like release some of that.
For sure. Can we just all agree this is insane?
It's fucking insane. Like I'm allowed to have cottage cheese on my ass, people. Like I'm a woman. My body fat's not, 15%. It's a healthy 20. And that's pretty low for a woman. And yet there's just so much pressure to have like, to be so cut and to be so shredded. And like, then that makes me more worthy as a fitness professional, aside from my knowledge and my ability to make you super strong and fit and feel good about yourself. That should trump all that other stuff.
Yeah. I've found as I've gotten healthier and really confident in my body, just probably because I'm confident in my life and stuff, like I actually find there's not one body type that I prefer, but I can really look at different body types and see how beautifully, especially clothing, different things look better on people who are curvy or who have like 30 extra pounds. And like, I'm so impressed with how people can like put these patterns together and like really be creative. Like I'm really into the softness more, I think, than when I was struggling with my weight. I really did like admire, I just thought everything looked good on people who were basically like, female little boys.
Like the fashion world.
Yeah.
Which is like hangers, basically things that you can just like lay over top of you.
Yes. And now I'm like, no, I want to see what real people look like and how they're rocking that. And I love, especially when curvy women wear those like high-waisted jeans. I'm like, you look so feminine. And maybe that's like bad to say that looks so feminine, because feminine can be anything, but like, I think it looks really sexy when
Well,
they
there's
do
just
that.
so many body types out there. Like everybody's body is different from the other person's body. And I think that it's special. We're all unique in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I bought a bathing suit this year because I had a 2-piece and I haven't worn a 1-piece in like probably 20 years or whatever. But again, I didn't wear a bathing suit for a long time. But I bought it and I loved it. And when we were at Martha's Vineyard, it was so functional. Like, I think I'm getting old. I was able to walk very comfortably in it. And I was like, and people look really good in 1-pieces. And my friend, I was at her pool party and I went into the pool and all this stuff. And she took pictures of us and like posted them on Facebook. And I like wasn't like, oh, what am I going to look like? I was just like, oh my God, it was such a good time. But I think the 1-piece is like underrated. Like, I felt so held in and like so like Carlos and I walked for like an hour on the beach and I wasn't worried about my top coming undone. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that for sure with like bikinis, sometimes they're very uncomfortable. Also the tie at the top of the neck hurts my neck. It gives me like a sore neck, and because you have to tie it tight enough where it's like not going to fall down. I also have embraced the 1-piece, but the only issue is the tan lines. You get tan everywhere and then your stomach is super, super white, but not that really matters, but it is more functional for sure.
That's true. Well, it's funny that you should say that because there's the 1-piece I bought has like a neck, like a back in the neck, but I took it off and like just put it closer to like where your armpits come in. And the one girl was like, "What's going on with your suit?" I'm like, "I don't want tan lines because I wear so many like tank tops."
Yeah.
So I get that. But I think I used to, as we're talking about this, I think I like wanted to wear a 1-piece or nothing because I felt like wearing a full piece was saying that I was like heavy and trying to cover up. Like I was calling attention to that or something. I think as we're
like you're not confident enough, your body's not good enough to wear
a bikini.
Bikini, yeah.
When really it's like, again, what looks good for you, and you're gonna, rather than thinking what people are gonna think, like how do you want to enjoy the pool party, or how do you want, and that could include even getting like a cool wrap, or something, but like really thinking about what you need and why you're feeling tired. Especially I think with clothing, the trigger is more uncertainty. What will people think? The inadequacy and the loneliness.
It's pretty crazy though, not to interrupt you, just thinking about this, just bathing suit, evolution, just how uncovered people are to go swimming, and how it's just, that's the norm, is to basically is to everyone to pretty much be naked.
Especially in Europe. When I lived in Paris, and we would it was actually, I think, after I studied abroad, and we did like a month abroad, and it was the summertime. And this was when I was like so insecure about my body. I had gained all this weight studying abroad, and it was so refreshing to see these like old people walking around nude, or heavier people, or thin people. Like it just, or even women walking around topless. I was like, this is shocking to me. Like I just was like, what? Like they didn't get ready for the beach in 6 weeks or breed women's, it was just like such like a different level of like comfortability with like a range of body types. And it was really healthy for me to see that. But I was like, I could never do that at the time. And now I bet I could do it if no one I knew was around.
I mean, I think it's important and freeing to go to the beach and be, if you want to start with the 1-piece, if you can get into a bikini and just see your body, feel your body, feel if you have rolls, if you have thighs rubbing together, whatever it is, and just being like, this is my body, and it's like, who's to say that this is wrong,
Yeah. And I also think focusing on like the sand between your feet and how cold or warm the water is, and
experiencing the elements.
Yes. And the pleasure of being in your body rather than being kind of this surround sound, or like, I think about like how they have cameras at the sports games, like tracking all these different angles. Like that's what we do with the criticalness of ours. Like, what does it look like from behind? What do I look like if I suck my stomach in? Like, try in your clothing, like, how do I like these textures? What colors do I like versus what I think looks good on me? And what feels really fun and self-expressive? And get a really good tailor. I think makes such a difference in being where you are. I've had so many clients who, once they kind of, as we're working together, it's not about weight loss. And It's like just really like cleaning out their closet of what doesn't fit anymore, not and just being where they are with it is it's hard to do the editing down or the donating. But then once they do that, it just feels so good to be where they are. And they can buy clothing that, as I would say, as someone who doesn't like to spend money on clothing, you can buy clothing that will change with you. You know what I mean? Like you can buy a dress that like, if you do lose weight, you can put a belt around it, or like wear the right size. And then you could wear a blazer over it that you could eventually take off or whatnot. But there's ways I think to really be where you are in the size that you're in, but first focusing on what you want to be wearing and what you feel good in. Because I know oddly, like I realized I feel really good in like A-line dresses, whether my weight's up or down, but with my body type, those all tend to look pretty flattering. And so it's like, okay, I have some of those, based on the season and stuff like that. So I think that's important. One thing I just want to say before we wrap up is I want to talk a little bit about green fashion. This is something that I'm just learning about, but the fashion industry, just like the food industry, is really built on slave labor. It's built on very like environmentally unfriendly practices. And so I just hope all of us, especially moving forward, we can think about vintage. We can think about really buying what we need versus just kind of buying to buy. And I have a couple cool companies that I think are doing really cool things. In Pittsburgh here, my friend named Nisha, she owns Knotsland, Knots Land, and she does recycled bow ties for special occasions, and they're fucking awesome. So I would just definitely check them out. And no one has paid me to say this. This is just me, my own social justice side. That's like, let's consider green fashion. The company Thread, also based in Pittsburgh, they make backpacks. They are literally, Juliet, taking plastic out of the ocean and recycling it into backpacks. How cool is that?
Fun. I need a new backpack. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, Thread. And then a friend of mine, her Instagram is Boundless by Kara, Kara. Her name's Kara Ladd, Ladd. She is a very fascinating 20-something-year-old who just has gone through cancer and is really into green fashion. And it is amazing to me, like what she shows and how you can really get like Gucci, Prada, all this stuff that's been really well worn, like hasn't been well, like it's been really well taken care of. And so like, don't think that just because green fashion, you have to wear like tie-dye. Like that's what I used to wear in middle school, like tie-dye shirts, but really high-end stuff. And I think that's super important. And then this company isn't necessarily environmental friendly, but I think they're doing a really good job with body diversity, which is, it's Knix wear, Knix wear. And Juliet, you were talking about athleisure. Like I got a bra from them that is like really comfortable, but you can also work out in it, but it's not like, it doesn't give you the uniboob that like sports bras do. So, because we didn't even talk about undergarments, but those are some of the plugs I wanted to give. Do you have any comments on green fashion? I don't know that much about it because I don't even know that much about fashion, but it's something that's really on my radar as I try to make choices more aligned with my values.
No, yeah, I think that's great. I think I always like when I find brands that are made in America, you know what I mean, versus coming from overseas where, there's a lot of like slave labor happening. Not to say that the things like the weird things don't happen in America, but I've always done a lot of consignment shopping and thrift store shopping, just something I was in the habit of doing from a young age. It's like fun to get pieces that you can't find in regular stores. It's like more one of a kind too.
Yeah, and it makes it more of an adventure, right? You can kind of pull things together. So
people always thought I was like weird for wearing people's old shoes, like for some reason. But,
really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a stinky feet thing or something, but I mean, people buy shit and literally wear it one time. It's crazy how much goes to waste. And I know even for myself, when I clean my closet out year after year and I'm like, oh my God, look at all the stuff I'm donating. This is crazy.
Yeah, but I love that you donated. I donate as well because I think it's so important. Don't throw it out, right?
Yeah, there's definitely people who will love to have the stuff. The only things I do throw out are some of my workout clothes because I don't want to have anybody be subjected to that. Nobody should have to wear some of my workout clothes.
You could use them as cleaning rags. That's what my mom.
No, I have done that. That's great. Yeah, I cut them up. I do that.
Oh, good.
Like old boxer shorts and stuff of my husband's, like we use them as cleaning rags.
Yeah. Oh, my mom used to do that with my dad's underwear. It was like all these white rags of like, it was like Hanes or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, any closing thoughts, Juliet? I mean, I just hope people will really like start to be okay with not fitting into whatever size and not even judging based on what size you are. Because to your point, they're all different. Who knows? Like the juniors are seniors and the seniors are juniors, and we're in the upside down. People, binaries are disintegrating.
No, it's totally true. I mean, I couldn't even fit into something in the Target. They didn't even have my size, like things like that. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like I'm a pretty average size. So it's just absolutely crazy out there. And we can't let it dictate our emotions and how we feel about ourselves and like having a good day or a bad day. And if you're struggling with, finding something to wear to go out, I mean, I think, Ali, just simplify. It doesn't have to be so crazy. Just simplify it.
Yeah. And figure out what you feel good about expressing, because clothing can be very expressive and it can be very political these days, right? Yes.
And most importantly is comfort. That's the most important. It really is.
Yes. I'm so glad you say that. Figure out what's comfortable for where you are right now. This Insatiable episode is sponsored by my life-changing program, as described by clients. Why am I eating this now? And that's not an exaggeration. Session after session, clients tell me this program changed their life. Or in the case of Shelly, who said, I wish I could bottle this feeling up and give it to everyone. If you're tired of the on-off cycle, want food to stop being worth it in the moment, especially after your clothes don't fit, but not afterwards, and you want to stop self-sabotaging with food, this program is for you. You will learn a clear and exact process with tools for getting to the root cause of why your emotions overpower you and you eat. You also learn with and from a dynamic community that likes to connect over the type of conversations we have on Insatiable. We simplify food, not give you more rules to rebel against. As one Why Am I Eating This Now client says, there's no white knuckling with this process. Early bird registration begins on September 10th. Early birds will receive a discount, early access to the classroom, and a freebie you won't want to miss. So be sure to visit AliShapiro.com/Food Freedom 2018 to be notified when registration opens for this year's live session. Hope to see as many Insatiable listeners there. We're going to have a great, fun, freeing time. Thank you, Health Rebels, for tuning in today. Have a reaction, question, or want the transcript from today's episode? Find me at AliShapiro.com. I'd love if you leave a review on Apple Podcast and tell your friends and family about Insatiable. It helps us grow our community and share a new way of approaching health and our bodies. Thanks for engaging in a different kind of conversation. And remember, always, your body truths are unique, profound, real, and liberating.